Hey guys, thanks for stopping by and watching another Niddleman review. This time we are reviewing X-Men Apocalypse, the third of the prequel trilogy, I guess you could say. The sixth movie of the official X-Men franchise and like the 20th movie that involved X-Men. I don't know. Anyways, this movie is taking place after Days of Future Past and before the ending sequence of Days of Future Past, I guess. So one big thing and question that was plaguing my mind before going into this movie, which I'm sure you're a lot curious about too, is does the end of Days of Future Past make sense if you include this movie into it? I would say yes, it does, because the way it ends, there's still a lot of time in between, but I would say the end of Days of Future Past kind of gives away what happens at this one, because obviously they're all happy and go lucky at the end of Days of Future Past, so you kind of know where this one goes. So it's a little bit of spoiler in the last movie. But hey, what can I say? That's their fault. Also, another question I had going into this movie was X-Men Apocalypse. So this Apocalypse character comes into this movie while they're all still young. Why does he come alive during this movie and raining all this crap on people and stuff, but we had never heard about him in the other movies when they're older? Shouldn't he have appeared during this time frame in the other series as well, you know, when they were older, like the original X-Men? They had never dealt with Apocalypse, so how come this time they are? Well, because when you mess with time and going back in time and changing stuff, obviously something happened, and they don't really go into details of why he became awakened this time and not in the original X-Men trilogy. But you know what? That's just one of those time ripple things. You just kind of have to accept it. It's a movie. Move forward. And I will also get these two things off my back right away. One, I could nitpick this movie apart to pieces. I could pull on the thread and unravel this movie's plot holes because there is a lot. There's a lot of things in this movie I did not like. With that said, though, the second thing is I really enjoyed this movie. It's one of those movies where there's a lot of issues with it, but I don't give a shit because I just enjoyed watching it so much. The time flew by. I was, enjoying it. It is what it is. It's a movie. It's entertainment. And I forgive its issues because I enjoyed watching it so much. So let me explain to you the pros to this movie and why the pros outweigh the negatives for me in this and why I'm willing to forgive all its issues. The biggest pro being the cast, the ensemble, everyone that they chose to play each of the roles I think is perfect, honestly, especially when it comes to Magneto. Michael Fassbender as Magneto was probably the best casting choice in history. This guy, in all three movies he's been in, has just been a tortured soul. You can understand why he makes the dark turns that he makes in both the last movie and in this movie, because he's one of those guys that just always gets a crappy deal dealt to him. You know what I mean? He always gets the shitty cards. And I feel so bad for the guy. I mean, think about it. He's an Auschwitz survivor. Kevin Bacon's character in First Class basically rips him of his choices and forces him to do things, with his abilities and stuff, threatening his mom. And oh man, the guy has just been through a lot, especially in this movie. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but he has some shit happen to him in this movie too. And it's like, my God, man. And then you got James McAvoy as Charles Xavier. I think he's the perfect Charles Xavier. He has that perfect level of kind of overconfidence, but not too overconfident because he's actually a badass, but also kind of a bumbly, relatable guy because, there's a girl he likes in this movie that's been in the other movies, and he kind of stumbles over his words when he talks to her. It adds kind of a comedic element. These characters aren't so out there with their powers and craziness that you just can't relate to them. You can relate to these characters and their relationships with each other just as we do in the real world. And the whole analogy of X-Men can be related to a lot of different topics in normal society, to each their own with how they're going to relate those topics. But to me, just the basic relationships with friendships and family in this movie are really top notch, honestly. I think a lot of people are going to overlook those elements, but I think it's very well done. Also, the effects in this movie. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of superpowers being used. There's all sorts of crazy stuff happening, and none of it comes across too cheesy or fake. But this leads me to my negatives, and it kind of deals with the villain of Apocalypse. Now, I think he sounds cool. I think he looks all right. His powers are actually pretty badass, but that's the thing, is that he has these four horsemen, right? The four horsemen of the apocalypse that kind of join his side. I guess every eon or whatever that he lives in, he has four other superpowered people to kind of defend him, and they're on his side and do his bidding. But they never really explain why he chooses the X-Men that he does, or why he chooses or why those superpowered people want to be on his side. He doesn't mind control them. He's not like forcing them to do it. It's just kind of like the first four people he comes across. It's like they're the horsemen. It's just because like they're the first four people he run into. They conveniently just want to be on his side. They don't really explain why. You see in the trailer, you got Storm, Psylocke, Magneto, and the Angel dude. And Magneto, actually, his makes sense. They delve great into his character. But the other three, Olivia, Munn, Psylocke, the chick, whoever it is that plays Storm, and the Angel dude, they really have no reason to be on his side. And he really has no reason to choose them, because there's obviously a lot stronger mutants out there. Angel, in this movie at least, he has wings and he can like swing them around and fight. It's like the dude really poses no threat to anybody. Psylocke, it's kind of cool. She basically has a lightsaber arm, or whatever, and whatever. They don't really pose any threat. He basically amplifies their powers and whatever. There's no real reason for them to be on his side, and the whole thing just bothered me that I didn't get that whole part. Let alone he didn't need them. He has such strong powers. He literally has the ability to just like turn things to dust, or basically do whatever the fuck he wants, because he's so fucking strong. He can just create things and destroy things. Like literally anybody that came up to him that opposed, he could have just been like, you're dead. But he doesn't do that, because they have to create a conflict and a fight and all that sort of stuff. So realistically, as a villain, I just found his execution pretty piss poor, because he could have won pretty easily if he really wanted to, but then we wouldn't have a movie. Which is why you kind of have to forgive that sort of thing, because it's like, yeah, if you put in an all-powerful guy and he just fucking obliterates anybody, you'd have no movie, right? So I understand why they didn't have him just go kill everybody, but it's still in the back of my mind, bothers me, like, there's no reason he should be posed a threat by anybody. Anyways, that's enough ranting for me. In the end, this movie is enjoyable. It's entertaining. It is not annoying to the point where you're like, oh God, I can't stand watching this. The plot holes. It's fucking entertaining. There's shit that happens. It's fun. The acting is great. The chemistry between all the characters is good. The overall story makes sense in the realm of the X-Men universe. It's not out of place. It can still fit in there. And at the end of the day, it's just a friends with benefits. I do think this movie's worth going to see in the theaters. Go check it out. Alright guys, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Remember to push the like or dislike button. Put some comments out there. Are you excited to see this movie? Did you enjoy it? Did you have the same issues with it I did? And stay tuned after this if you want to see some more movie reviews, if you can handle it. Go.